It's car con carne. Let's eat in the car. It's car con carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
I got to tell you, I'm proud of you for being able to record your voice stuff at home. I never want to do any recording at home ever again. Ever since COVID and doing like 200 episodes of this, I have PTSD from Zoom recordings, all that. I just want to be in my car eating hot dogs in perpetuity.
I'm down with that too.
Yeah.
I'm down with that too, but there is something to just going in and nobody's bothering. I got my YouTube videos if I need to take a chill out for a second and just crush through my work.
I get that. All right. This is a collaborative podcast. Can I still read my sponsor if it's a collaborative?
Please do.
Okay. Car Con Carne is sponsored by Easy Automation, easy-automation.net. Transform your living space with cutting-edge home automation. Experience seamless control over audio, video, lighting, climate, security, and more. Embrace the future of smart living. Your home, your rules, motherfucker. Get a quote by visiting easy-automation.net or give my guy Dan, not the guy Dan sitting next to me right now, the other Dan, the Easy Automation Dan, give him a call at 630-730-3728, 630-730-3728. He says he kind of likes when I do that, in case you're wondering.
I like it.
I wish more advertisers were on board with that.
You would think in this realm, the podcasting space, they would be more open to that.
Well, the name of the game is being memorable, right?
That's right.
Don't you want to be the motherfucker?
I want to be the motherfucker guy who gets the biggest prize out of that. So yes,
that's right. Car Con Carne is a Q101 podcast. I'm James Van Alstyne. I mentioned this is a collaborative podcast. So what is happening right now, as I'm recording this for Car Con Carne, is happening for Barguments.
Yes. Welcome to those fans as well. All three of them, which is my wife and my son.
This exact podcast will be shared out to two different fan bases. Nothing but fame awaits us after this. Dan Levy is the architect, the host, the man who's spearheading Barguments. What is Barguments?
Barguments is a podcast where we argue topics that are very silly, that don't have a real answer, and it's something you do with your buddies at a bar, a barbecue, barbershop.
Hot dog place?
In this case, iconic Chicago hot dog restaurants.
So here's a little insider information. I'm recording at Gene and Jude's. If ever you listen to Car Con Carne or watch it on video, as some do, and you see or hear that I'm at Gene and Jude's, it means I don't have a restaurant sponsor, and this is the cheapest thing I could do.
Actually, it's the cheapest thing because it's my pleasure.
Yes.
This one was my pleasure. I'm the one that brought the idea to you.
So
and to be honest, you are the reason 20 plus years I've lived in Chicago, never had Gene and Jude's until today.
I'm so glad you're... Well, we should start eating as we're talking.
A pilgrimage. There you go.
So for those Bargument fans who have never heard or seen Car Con Carne, I've been doing this for going on 11 years. The general premise, not always adhered to, general premise is I meet my guest at a local restaurant, brew pub, place of note, and we eat and chat in my parked car. And I swear to God, I was doing this before James Corden and a lot of those other...
Well, first of all, I don't even know which one. I got a double, but I don't care which one is which.
All right, so we're at Gene and Jude's. This feels way more substantive.
Yeah, that's a bigger guy.
Yeah. This is single dog. As I said to Dan when we walked in, Gene and Jude's, your choices are hot dogs or hot dogs.
Yeah, all the different hot dog places that people always tell me to go to, the Super Dogs, Portillo's. Hot dogs is like the third thing on the list. But this place, it's only hot dogs, only fries, and tamales. That's it.
Yeah, and why would you get a tamale?
I am impressed already.
Here. Yeah. So the Depression dog, it's a hot dog couched in a bed of French fries, which they cut and make in-house.
Amazing.
Their fries are great. Fries are absolutely great. Now, Dan Levy, astute Car Con Carne listeners/watchers.
I have been a listener and a watcher of this podcast.
Well, I was going to say
since the inception, when you and Mike Bratton were getting barbecue.
And you've also been a guest. You were my guest at Chicago Culinary Kitchen. You were my guest at Rickabenny's.
That was those both were really good. Mm-hmm. Well, my first time soloing it with you, and I'm honored.
Mm-hmm. Long overdue.
Yes.
I mean, we last did this pre-pandemic.
I will say, James, you are one of the few people in radio that I would say your reputation, I knew who you were before I met you, and that's because you were a Columbia graduate. And I remember one of your bosses, his name was Bill Gamble. Uh-huh. We'll drop the name. He came into a class, and his famous story to our class was that you came in one day, you weren't on the air, and you just said, I think I'm better than everybody on here. I want to be on the air.
Okay,
And I've asked you that before, and I don't think that's the truth.
You know me well enough to know that I would never say that.
No, now that I've gotten to know you, I can't imagine you doing that.
I believe I said something along the lines of, here's the situation. I was working as a programming assistant. It was my first job out of an internship. The woman who was hosting the local show, then called the Local Music Showcase, Carla Leonardo, took a job on the East Coast, so that position was vacated. The other disc jockeys at the radio station weren't terribly interested in hosting and curating 30 minutes or an hour worth of independent local music, which during the 90s, they're fucking crazy not to have wanted to do that.
Yes.
But I think I probably said something to Bill at the time, because I was working for him. I said, I think I can do this show. I would like to audition for it. He's like, hey, you got to put together a tape. I'd never done that before. So what I did to get an audition together, I went out and did 3 interviews with local bands. Never did that before. Interviewed Wesley Willis at Lounge Jacks, interviewed Loud Lucy at Fireside Bowl, and a band called the Nubile Thangs at Martyrs.
Wow.
And I grabbed actualities, sound bites from each of those interviews and spliced them into a demo show using real local bands at the time, and I got the job. I think, was it a great audition? Probably not, but I was the only one who raised his hand.
I don't know if anybody who submits a first audition demo in our business is ever really that good.
Right.
But I can imagine yours being exceptionally well because of how much your knowledge is.
But I never went in and said, I'm better than everyone else.
I know. He made it seem like James went in and said, I heard what's on the air. I think I can do it better.
Steve
Give
Fisher,
me a shot.
sure. I'm kidding. Kidding. Love you, Steve. Miss you.
I haven't heard of that name in a long time. I love that guy.
Steve is one of those smart dudes in radio. Steve Fisher did Afternoon Drive on Q101 during its heyday. Later replaced by Tim Virgin, later replaced by Sludge. Sludge was in real life replaced by Brian, his other name. But Steve was one of those smart dudes who saw the writing on the wall for the industry, and he started building another career for himself. And so he's been a super successful real estate.
There's a lot of people that I've known have gone from radio to super successful in real estate. And I know you've kind of dipped your toes out of the radio water. I tried it.
I'm done. During
the pandemic, I got my insurance license. I did well. I just can't leave it yet. There's goals I want to accomplish first.
You can't leave it
before I can say no more. I feel like there's like 3 or 4 more bites of an apple that I want to accomplish before I can say I've done what I wanted to do.
Rare is the person who leaves by choice.
Yes.
You'll be done with radio when they tell you you're done with radio.
They've been telling me that for quite some time.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I would venture to guess that 75% of the people currently working in radio are currently working their last ever radio jobs.
Yes, which is a very scary thing. And to be honest, when I went to Columbia College, we had Alan Stagg. And the first day of class, he crushed the entire class. and everything he said was true. Everything's going to be automated. In 20 years, you'll all be either replaced by syndicated voices or somebody from some other town. The jobs will be swallowed up. And
visionary. There'll
be very little work for anybody to do. And then the next day, the next class, I think I was one of 3 people that came in. And he said, you're probably going to make it. And that was it. But I would say, out of everybody I went to Columbia with and all my friends that are in radio, maybe 6 are still doing it. Now, since the inventions of podcasts, and since this whole medium has taken over, I've been involved with podcasts since like 2007. So I was doing a podcast out of my apartment in Ukrainian Village. I had Chet Kopic. I had ex-basketball players and NFL players coming over, and I was doing podcasts for them before anybody even knew how to make money off of it. And at the time, I thought it was a no-go.
That's such a hipster thing to say. I was doing podcasts before.
It really is, but I would say there was no glory to it.
Dude.
Until I told Abe Cannon and Ryan Mano, Abe and I were both kind of out of jobs. Ryan was still working at Q101. And I just said, as long as we're not really doing much, let's do a podcast. And then that podcast led to us being on the Howard Stern channel. And then I went, oh, okay, there's a way to make another life out of this. And during the pandemic, I was able to kind of curate more clients and do more stuff like this. So to be honest, as long as I have like my hand kind of in radio and in podcasting and in voiceover, I feel like there's enough for me to not leave yet.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people I do radio in my car now.
But it's awesome.
And it's
This is better than any studio I've ever been in.
because they're hot dogs.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, these fries, they're like perfectly salted.
Yes.
I think the fries are the unsung MVP. I mean, your choices are hot dogs or fries, but the unsung MVP on the menu here at Gene and Jude's.
It's an interesting touch that Chicago has that. When you go to these upper echelon hot dog places, the fries on the hot dog.
Dating back to the Depression.
It doesn't depress me the least bit.
No. In fact, I feel great about it. And what's awesome, the sport peppers are kind of mingling with the fries at the bottom.
I haven't even gotten there yet. It's a mountain.
Delightful. All right, so Barguments started when?
Barguments started a year ago. About almost a year and a half ago.
I feel like it's been going on forever, but you also work it really hard.
Well, I try my hardest because during the pandemic, we were all working from home. So the job that I have is with Total Traffic Network in Chicago. And for the pandemic, they gave pretty much, I already had a home studio, but they gave everybody else a home studio. So I thought that was going to be what I was going to be doing for the rest of this job. Mm-hmm. But then, like everybody else, when all the restrictions came off, they started making everybody come back. And then they started telling us to come back 2 to 3 days a week. And I was just like, you know what? If I got to come here and do traffic, I'm going to spend 1 hour, come early, and I'll start a podcast.
Right.
And I'll try to keep it up consistently. And like everything else, you and I both know this. The part I hate about it the most is booking the guests. But you do it; it's a labor of love because
it is the hardest.
When you snag one like a white whale, you're like, "This is amazing."
See, I have mixed feelings, and I've talked about this before about the guest booking process. First of all, when Carcon Carne makes its first $1 million, first thing I do is I'm going to hire a producer. First thing.
Yes.
Second thing I do, I'm going to get a Coca-Cola freestyle machine like you get at the AMC movie theaters.
Amazing.
Where you can get like raspberry Coke Zero. Yeah, love that. But it is the hardest thing. What I've noticed with my podcast, and it may be different for Barguments, white whales are great for branding and to get people's attention.
Yes.
To get more guests. They don't necessarily translate to listening.
No. And in fact, I've always been the one where I've had comedians come on the podcast. Some are really good at this whole format of podcasting, and some are awful.
Right.
And I've had either some guests where I'm like, ooh, I got an athlete I've always wanted to get on. And you give them 2 questions, and they talk for 45 minutes, and you're like, do you want to talk about what's the worst way to put the toilet paper roll for a bargument? And then you feel really awkward, breaking that up. So it's been
it's a
test.
It's the paper under. You got to go over.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what the most people say. Yeah. But to be honest, every now and then when I want to change my luck in life, I'll switch it.
Interesting.
Since the pandemic, as long as there's something on the roll, James, I don't care which way it's coming out.
That's fantastic.
I remember being so scared I wasn't going to be able to do it. You're the front or the back.
I'm the top, you're the bottom?
Yeah. Do you have any more white whales in terms of
I've got tons.
what we're doing?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm approaching episode 1000. That's going to happen, I'm thinking, end of September. In fact, I'm building 4 live events to celebrate. Details coming later this month. As I'm approaching episode 1000, I have left a vacant spot. Wait, hang on.
Oh, that guy's...
I saw you
That's
guys.
it.
How are you?
I saw you guys.
What's your name?
Joaquin.
What up, man?
Great to meet you. I'm James.
Likewise.
That's
guys.
unbelievable.
I was like, I saw them interview Ethan from Hermosa.
Yeah.
That is
That was
unbelievable.
amazing. Hey guys. I saw the microphones. I was like, I know these guys. I'm just gonna triple check. But thank you guys for your podcast. Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
And Ethan is he's a masterful chef.
Yeah.
He is.
The interview with him was amazing.
Thank
I
you.
loved it.
Thank you. This is Dan. He does a
Dan.
podcast called Barguments.
Nice to meet you.
Nice.
I really appreciate you saying hi.
Oh, likewise, guys. Can I just
Very
take
cool.
a selfie?
Yeah, you can take a selfie. We're
All right.
recording, but this is perfect.
Okay, great.
Selfie mid-podcast. This is why I did the collaboration.
Nice. Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys.
Nice meeting you,
Thanks,
man.
dude. Have a good night.
guys.
Take care.
Enjoy.
That's hilarious. Okay, so he came up to the window.
All right, speaking of famous, I think that was the...
He came up to the window with
that's a white whale right there.
with my podcast on his cell phone to show that he recognized us.
That's awesome.
That was what a cool dude. Thank you for watching, Joaquin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Joaquin. That was totally great.
That was awesome. Okay, that's one I've never experienced before.
So I lost my train of thought. Oh, no. So as I'm approaching episode 1000, I have left a vacancy as we're talking about white whales, guests that we would love to land. I did not record in episode 666. I have left that open for either Alice Cooper,
Whoa.
Rob Zombie, or John Carpenter. Those are my 3 white whales and 3 guests who would be appropriate for episode 666.
That was awesome.
So if you go back through the
I feel
archives,
like Alice Cooper is somewhat gettable, and I will try to help you with that one.
I've been trying for years. I've had his daughter on the podcast, and I've had his bass guitarist. That's as close as I've come.
Okay, so you've definitely gone the distance with it. Rob Zombie is definitely one I think it would be everybody's white whale.
Oh,
For the music and the movie, and especially with the horror movies.
Oh yeah, I for sure. So those are my white whales. Who do you want to bargain with?
You know what? It's funny. I wanted to do a thing where I would kind of theme it out a little bit. And during Halloween, I was like, you know what? During the summer, during the spring, I'm going to try to get Freddy Krueger. I'm going to try to get Elvira. I'm going to try to get a Jason. And every time I've reached out to these people, they're all like, they only want to do their genres of podcasts. So I'm like, I didn't realize there were genres. I was like, it's the summertime. I just want a quick call.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess I won't. I guess I'll just have Exhibit, who's clearly going to come on, not a rapping genre podcast, and he'll come on instead.
I think that's cool.
I do want to. I wanted to. I think for me, the white whale is having Freddy Krueger as Freddy Krueger.
And Robert Englund specifically, yeah.
And just asking him questions and what would you rather in terms of murder stuff. And that's kind of what I wanted to throw at him.
That'd be awesome.
That might just be a dream that may never, ever get lived. But
so I did Candy Corn Carne last October, and I did all Halloween themed.
That's what I wanted to do.
So I did the Oohs and Ahs, OOOZINAH. They're a monster band. They dress like monsters, professional makeup.
Awesome. I don't know how you've gotten bands in here. This car is barely able to fit me.
So I had, along those lines, I had White Rabbit Object. I love this band.
Awesome.
Independent Chicago band. Had them on the podcast maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Lead singer, Mallory in the front seat, 3 musicians in the back seat, 2 guitarists and a percussionist. It was bananas. It came out great, but the percussionist had to bail the second they were done recording. He's like, "I'm out." He was so uncomfortable.
I do remember being in this car with Ringo Benny's we went to, and Tim Virgin was sitting up here, and Abe and I were in the back seat, and Abe and I are bigger people in real life. And I remember being like, my legs may never come actually out of this car.
Yeah. Dude,
I'm good to leave it here.
Dude, are you really not eating this hot dog?
I was just talking to you, but I'm in.
You are insulting Gene and Jude's. Why don't you just walk up to the counter and flip them off? That's basically what you're doing right now.
Dude, I have so many fries on here, I didn't even know there was a hot dog inside of it. Let me get to the actual dog. I still
The dog is real
fries.
simple. The dog is mustard, it's relish, sport pepper.
That's a Chicago hot dog.
It's not a Chicago hot dog, but it's a damn good hot dog.
Close enough to it.
Yeah.
Are you a no ketchup guy? Sorry, I gotta get closer to the mic. Are you a no ketchup guy?
I'm a no ketchup guy in that I would never put it on a hot dog, but I'm not a militant asshole about it.
I've never understood why there are so many rules in Chicago about how I eat.
You know, you
can't have deep dish if you live here. It's got to be thin crust.
No, it's an identity thing. People want to be part of something, and that's the Chicago way. It helps define who they are. I've never been militant about it. I mean, for those of us who've had children, you know that ketchup on dogs is something that's going to happen at some point. I love deep dish. Fuck people who say it's...
I do too.
Oh my God.
That's my favorite.
I love deep dish. I will eat at Lou's or Peak. I live by both, Lou's and Pequod's. I'll eat there all the time. But I also love thin crust. I mean, I'm perfectly happy doing the tavern style.
I am good. Anytime somebody calls something pizza, I'm down. Pizza puff, thick crust, deep dish, I'm down with all.
Well, that's just it. Even shitty pizza is great because
it's always good
because it has cheese and crust.
The sauce. That's all you need. That's all you need.
And also, for those of us who had children, we've all had the Little Caesars birthday party.
Domino's is my son's favorite.
Domino's works too, but those Little Caesars pizzas, the generic ones, the sausage, pepperoni, and cheese, they're all $5 a piece. You get a bunch of them, and then you get a bonus pizza for the parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even Jets is good. The Detroit style is amazing.
A little greasy.
Most of the good ones are. Most of the good ones are. I've yet to have a Costco slice of pizza and not wear it on the way home.
Yeah, same. You know what you said you've never been here?
Never been here.
I have never been down the street to Halakahiki, the Tiki Lounge.
I've never been either.
I've been dying. I can't believe I've lived in this area my whole life. I've never been there.
There are so many north side places I haven't been to. That's the other thing. I've always kind of lived like in the city, and now I'm in the southwest suburbs. So the Vito and Nick's and that kind of stuff, I go to a lot. But
I do like Vito and Nick's.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's a really tasty place. But hitting these north side places, I've always wanted to do this one.
Excellent. Well, here we are. So, do we need to start barguing? Like, what's the format? Do you kind of warm up, or do you just go into it? Like,
you know what? It depends with everybody I'm
dogs
with.
or cats?
Cats. I'm a cat guy.
Are you really?
You know what? I grew up with cats.
Get out.
I grew up with cats, and they're easy. If you're a radio guy,
they shit in the house. What's easy about that?
They have their own box. They leave you alone. They walk very quietly. If I'm recording, they're not going to start barking for no reason at all. In fact, sometimes they don't even want to see you or talk to you. It's lovely. Dogs, they want to be all over you. They want to be in your grill. They want you to take them. You got to walk in the middle of the winter, negative 60 degrees. You got to grab a leash. Then you got to give them a bath. Cats give themselves a bath. They're automatic.
I will say with dogs, my dog, who is just now over a year, I made a point of getting the dog as a puppy when he was a puppy in summertime, because you do not want to have a puppy in Chicago in the winter for that exact reason.
No.
Running outside at 2 in the morning.
And puppies are like babies, number one. Kids are not. Kids are pretty automatic. You show them where a litter box is or where the food is, they kind of just go in that direction. Puppies, it is around the clock. You gotta take care of those things.
Yeah, you're helicopter parenting those puppies.
Yes, and even some dogs you can't leave on their own. Cats, you can probably leave them in your house 3 days without really any supervision. Give them enough food in the bowl, make sure the litter box is clean. You can go out for a weekend. Dogs, you got to board those things, or know somebody, or
That's true.
Pay an app to feed them and walk them and just be with them. That's an expensive kid right there. At least the kid will move out one day.
I am wearing this, by the way. The hot dog.
I came purposely for it. That's why I'm wearing a T-shirt that says I'm a voiceover talent. Hire me.
Now, I say this with all due respect, Dan. You walked up with this T-shirt. It looks like the kind of T-shirt you'd find at Goodwill.
Oh, yeah. This is the kind of T-shirt that you would wear at any street fair, knowing that I'm going to get barbecue sauce, ketchup, and someone's going to spill a beer on me. And if this was the 90s, early 2000s, if I went to a bar, there'd be a couple cigarette burns in it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I do.
So do you have like predetermined questions for Barguments based on who your guest is?
I try to tailor it to that person. And I've also tried to, like, at least a lesson I've learned is letting the guests know what the Barguments are. Because every now and then I would just try to throw it at them, and it takes longer for the people to do it. But if I prep somebody, I try to tailor it to whatever it is that they're into or what they need.
That prep was literally 30 seconds before I hit record.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
pretty much. But to be honest, if it makes you feel better, the questions were developed about an hour before I got in the car.
Okay. So yeah,
and you and I were texting each other. I was like, I think he's working. I'm not going to call him yet. I think if I give it to him beforehand, we should be okay.
So I haven't had a lot of time to finesse where this is going, so we'll see where it goes.
Okay.
Do you play like a music bed or something? The Bargument. Like, how do you get into this?
It's a natural segue.
Okay.
Natural. Doesn't need to be overproduced.
Barguments.
Bunch of beer mugs clinging together.
Uh-huh.
Cheers.
God.
All right, here's the one.
I don't miss any of that.
Here's the one that it's a generic one I was going to give you. But Bargument number one, James.
Yep.
What is more annoying, to lose your cell phone or to lose a remote control?
I think it goes without saying. It's a cell phone.
You would think that, but the minute you lose that remote control in your house, and the minute you're all by yourself and you're like, I'm going to watch a TV show, there's nobody home,
See,
everyone's
I'm
asleep,
a terrible person to ask this. I don't ever watch TV. I almost never watch.
Yeah, but you're like a giant movie guy. I remember at one point you were spending like all your nights watching a new horror movie.
I'm not doing it on TV. I'm doing it on a computer.
You watch movies on computers?
Yeah, I've got a nice monitor size.
Are you just sitting and watching it?
Yeah.
Sitting like in a desk chair watching a movie?
Well, not a desk chair, but I've got a chair and an ottoman, and I'll watch it.
Oh, I can't do that. I can't do the computer.
I don't like TV.
So then it goes differently for you.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, so yeah, the cell phone would be more annoying for you. Yeah. I can see that. All right, since it is Car Con Carne, you're a music guy.
I am.
Best
Carcon
band.
Carne, best music podcast according to the readers of the Chicago Reader for 2023 and 2022.
I voted for that.
Thank you.
Best band named after a food.
So options would be Meatloaf,
Yep.
the Cranberries, actually part of the same meal. Smashing Pumpkins,
Yep. Blind Melon.
Blind Melon, sure.
Limp Bizkit, but we said that's a no-go.
And the spelling, even though it's a homophone, the spelling's a little suspect. I don't know if that counts.
Got it. That's fine. Eminem, I'm not going to put in there, even though it isn't candy, but that's named after him. I'm not going to give that one.
Yeah, that feels like a stretch as well.
Yes, I'd give you that one as well.
And
Pearl Jam, I don't even know if that's a food, but that was in a category I saw too when I was looking at it.
Pearl Jam?
Jam.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
All right, so what do you have?
I would say for me, number one, it's going to be the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Or to be honest, the band that travels the most, Fish.
You're a Fish fan?
I'm not a big Fish fan, but that's probably one of the better bands. If you're going to think of a band that's food, for me, the Red Hot Chili Peppers are number one.
I just don't want to make them number one for anything. I don't want to give them that recognition.
I do like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I've seen them live twice. The first time they were amazing. Second time I saw them in Allstate Arena and they were doing a jam session for 45 minutes. It was the first concert I ever left. It was that bad. So
I'm just straight
I
up
can
not
see
a
that.
fan. Not a fan of
Really, up and down.
Up and down.
No, none of it. Even the cover songs of Stevie Wonder,
Which is
Under the Bridge.
the cover song from Stevie Wonder, Higher Ground, off the album Mother's Milk, 1989. One of the most poorly produced major label records of that era. If you go back and listen to Mother's Milk, it sounds tinny and thin and hollow, like they just didn't give a shit in the studio. I think the recording of Higher Ground sounds like garbage.
Okay. When I work out, I put it on. I don't listen to that intently, but I'll.
You don't need to.
I'll put it on. I will put it on.
Put it on next to another song. Put it on next to Nine Inch Nails' Closer, and you will hear the disparity between the production quality of those two songs.
I love it because when I presented another Bargument to you, you're going to say, I don't want to do anything negative. And the way you just lit up the Red Hot Chili Peppers is amazing.
Well, the Chili Peppers are the worst. I mean,
they're the worst. Okay, don't give it to me. I like it.
they're a band for people who think they like music.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm not. I will say this. I am not the music savant
I'm not
that
either.
you are.
I'm not either.
Well, let me ask you this. Then who's the number one for you?
I don't have a number one food name band, but two that came to mind: the Meat Puppets. Love the Meat Puppets, who during the 80s, at the same time the Red Hot Chili Peppers were recording songs like Catholic Schoolgirls Rule and whatever other direction. They were recording seminal independent records on the SST label.
Seminal. Well, I get. I like it.
Why is that word funny to you?
I don't know. It's just it really paints the picture.
Also, I'm going to go with the Sugar Cubes.
Ooh, that one is
Love
good.
the Sugar Cubes.
That is what I didn't think about. That's a good one.
Their first two albums, especially, Life's Too Good and then Here, Today, Tomorrow, Next Week, love them. And there's scattered songs in that third album I like too. Hit was a great hit. But yeah, love the Sugar Cubes, love Bjork.
You love Bjork. Mm-hmm. See, that's the one I never got into.
Well, I love the Sugar Cubes. I mean, that's how I came to know her. So that's where
I like them, but with her, for some reason, the style, it's never done it for me.
I totally get that because those albums can be tough listens.
Yes.
I think it's a song-by-song thing with her solo career.
Now, you and I were talking earlier because I've had a argument before of the Mount Rushmore of the 4 best alternative rock female voices of all time. And I did this one with Grant Random from Sirius XM, and you didn't like any of them. So,
well, I saw people responding online too.
I would love your list.
And they were saying, I'm going to pull it out of thin air because I don't have this written down or planned. But I would see people contribute to this, like Alanis Morissette. Really, are we doing that?
No.
Liz Phair, who I love Liz, but Liz Phair is a one-album artist. Mm-hmm. And that album is Exile in Guyville, 1993. Yep. After that, good luck getting through a full album. Love
agree.
Liz Phair. But yeah, people were kind of enraging with the things they were suggesting. So if I were to pull it out of thin air, if you're doing a Mount Rushmore, I also feel kind of weird. It feels reductive to say this one's all about the women. Like are we really, in 2024? Are we defining artists by their gender? I don't know. But
aren't we giving them like a nod? Like, hey, there's a spot for you because if you guys made an impact too.
No, if you're a female artist, there's no reason you shouldn't be thought of in the same breath as the male artist. You're just an artist.
Okay.
You're not a.
Interesting. Is there a female artist in the alternative rock genre that you would put up there in a Mount Rushmore of all time?
You just glance past the entire.
Oh, no, yeah. But if a girl could be up there with the rest of the guys as just a rock Mount Rushmore.
If you're going to isolate by gender, I would put Debbie Harry, Blondie up there, without question.
Okay.
From a more modern perspective, I would put PJ Harvey, who's done some of the most groundbreaking, innovative music of the past 25 years. I would put Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders up there.
That was really good.
Especially those first two Pretenders albums are great, but Learning to Crawl, that big commercial breakthrough for the band, still, I mean, all those songs still matter today. People still play 2,000 Miles every Christmas. I mean, great stuff.
That's true.
I would say Patti Smith, but I think it's dishonest. I think Patti Smith is great. I just don't listen to her enough.
I would agree with you. What about Pat Benatar? Is that more of a
no?
Is that a rock version? No.
Name me one album that you would listen to all the way through by Pat Benatar. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
I can't do it.
Hey, that was my issue with like Alanis Morissette. Okay, maybe you bought into Jagged Little Pill. Are you really spending time with those other records? For someone to be on the Mount Rushmore, they have to have had a lasting impact, which is my Liz Phair argument. Exile in Guyville, probably the most essential album of 1993 for a variety of reasons. But the subsequent albums took her farther away from that point.
Where do you stand with Gwen Stefani?
She's a great pop artist.
So she's more pop than even though No Doubt and all that.
As a solo artist, yes, No Doubt it's pop punkish.
Okay. So I remember her doing some stuff with Sublime and doing some. For me, I still see her as a alternative popish.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Not fully transition to the pop yet.
As a solo artist, she is 100%, no question about it, a pop artist.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you. I would definitely agree with you. Last argument for you. What's the greatest sandwich of all time, James? And I know that even includes the one that Epic Deli has made for you as well.
I will always say the Reuben. I think the Reuben's
the most classic, yes.
The Reuben is the perfect sandwich. The rye bread, the sauerkraut, the Swiss cheese, and the corned beef. And I like the Reuben variations. I like it with pastrami or turkey pastrami. On the Thousand Island. It's a wonderful combination of flavors.
Is what we're eating right now considered a sandwich?
I think it has to.
The hot dog.
I think it is.
I said it is.
It's bread and meat.
I agree.
It's unorthodox bread.
Agreed.
But, I mean...
It's bite-sized. It's handheld.
It has two sides with something in the middle of it.
Yes.
I mean, it's a silly...
I go the same way with you. I've had a lot of people argue and say it's not. That sandwiches are, its own entity. Like a PB&J would have no meat to it. But I agree with you.
Going back to the Mount Rushmore, did you ever say yours?
I did say it was Gwen Stefani was one. For me, I know you hate it. Courtney Love for me is number 2.
Courtney Love is iconic. Again, I go back to the lasting artistic contributions. Live Through This is a great album. Celebrity Skin is not. Courtney Love's solo album, not so much.
I think, but as far as what the pop culture of her, for who she was with Kurt Cobain, for what she attributed to during that era, for me, I don't think you could leave her off. Because to me, that alternative, that 90s rock, I know we're going to go some 80s, some 70s. People would say Janis Joplin. Some people would say all the ones you did. Alanis Morissette, I would not. But in terms of that voice, that sound, that look, and just the fact that I thought she was talented. I think she is a talented singer, but maybe not the work that other people have had. But to me, I can't think of a 90s alternative female without thinking of her first.
She was the most present. She was the most covered by the press and the media.
100%.
But if we're going pound for pound, artistic talent, creative output, and from that era, for me, it's Polly Jean Harvey, 10 times out of 10.
Awesome. It's hard to argue with you because You're so much more polished when it comes to this, and you can bring facts to a table like I can't. You're bringing up like, years made, who was in the studio, what was on the dashboard, what kind of cigarettes they smoked. I can't hang like that. I'm just a guy in a bar drinking with you and just going, yeah, that sounds about right.
Cheers. Barguments. Is that how we get out of it?
Get it wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you have to say that in a podcast? I see so many people doing that, like, hey, get this podcast wherever you... Don't we know where to find a podcast at this point?
At this point, we do. But to be honest, I'll have my mom go, where do I get it? I don't listen to podcasts. I want to hear it. All right.
In fairness, to that end, podcasts may not be at the tipping point yet. I mean, there's still some adoption that needs to happen.
I think that once the generation that you and I are in becomes older, it will then have taken over. And until that happens, and the older generation that prefers an AM radio in their car, they're might not going to be going to a platform where they can hear us all the time.
You know what surprises me, and I've said this before, I've probably said it to you before, Dan. It surprises me that more people in radio have not moved over to podcasting, if for no other reason than a self-preservation, career forwarding, brand forwarding move.
I would say maybe you get this too. You have to. 3 times a year, especially like when kids are graduating high school or about to, I will have somebody on Facebook reach out to me and say, my son, my daughter is interested in sports broadcasting. Can you give them some advice? And the first words out of my mouth are, start a podcast.
Sure. Low barrier for entry.
If you can do it weekly, show that you know how to use the audio, show that you know how to move a brand, show that you can talk about this at length. And if you can start to do that weekly and start to bring actual content to wherever it is that you want to start interning for or working for, then you may have a shot at doing this. But if you're not doing a podcast right now, then a lot of people are going to quit the business. And they're not going to feel it. I feel like podcasts and radio are going to kind of orbit each other for a while.
Mm-hmm.
As long as there's a guy named Joe Rogan making that much money off a podcast, not saying I'm him or I'm not famous to do it, but there's money to be made. There are sponsors out there that are looking to get involved in things like that. So I just got to try it.
When I started talking seriously about monetizing this podcast, I remember talking to people in radio, and they'd say, well, how do you sell? You're not doing cost per thousand, which is...
No.
Why would you? Like, this is long tail stuff. Like,
yes.
you were selling the concept more than anything.
Yes.
You're selling that small group of highly interested people as opposed to a numbing amount of masses.
And if you start anything from a grassroots and you're not a celebrity, it takes time to build. I started this.
It takes time to build if you are like a Z-lister.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I've done a Facebook group where I only have like maybe 400 members that are on there. I would say 3 to 4 times a week I'm throwing barguments in there for people to start chewing on and arguing. And they'll send me stuff. I'll try to use it on episodes, but it is a process, and it's a full-time job with the hobby of trying to make it a full-time job.
Yeah, I certainly, this is my creative pursuit. People say, oh, so is that your side hustle? No, this is, that doesn't seem right. This is how I scratch that itch.
It's the outlet. It's the outlet.
And like I told you when we were in line at Gene and Jude's, this is kind of my social life at this point.
You know what? It is. The older I've gotten, the more, hey, let's podcast. That just means I get an hour to chat with you.
Right. Like, I'm going to hang out with someone interesting tonight. We're going to eat food, and it's going to be awesome.
I was looking forward to this since the minute I said you want to collab, and you said let's do Gene and Jude's. I was like, this is my week.
When you say collab, is that to embrace the youth population? Because are you like, hey, kids?
What's another word for it? If
collaborate, collaboration, partnership, team up.
Yeah, if you can get it down to like 1 or 2 syllables, I think it's okay.
Sick, dude.
I don't know what the jargon they were using in 1989 to collab was, but I'll get to that one. But to be honest, like I said, it's just fun to hang out with you. Yeah. I saw you get out of the car, and I was like, you see an old friend. You're like, I don't even think I'm podcasting. I think I'm just talking to you.
Right. We just have to. Well, and that's the thing too about this format. And I mentioned I have PTSD from doing Zoom interviews. It changes the way the conversation spools out when you do it in a situation like this. We're sitting in a car. We're not in a sterile studio. We're not in front of audio, like
No.
pristine audio equipment. We're in a car eating French fries.
In a parking lot where people are coming up and taking selfies.
That was hilarious.
That made my night.
Me too.
That was awesome.
Mission accomplished. Like going back to side hustle versus creative outlet. That's what I do it for. I'm not making a mint doing this.
I was going to say, has anything that you've ever done in radio ever felt better than when someone says, I was listening to you? Whenever I've gone to like an event, a family event, or someone goes, hey, I actually heard you on the radio. You sounded good. For some reason, that it just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. It's it's a rush. Like every time I hear someone say it, it's never gotten old.
It's interesting. I do have people who might have heard me on Q101 or even XRT back in the day. I find, especially depending on someone's age, a lot of people will know me from the podcast, but have no idea that I did radio.
Now that's interesting.
It blows my mind.
Because you've been on the radio for like 30 years. You've been doing the podcast for what, 6?
No, going on 11.
It's been 11. Wow.
I mean,
you're right, because when I was at WGN is when you started it.
Yeah, episode 1000 is coming up.
Wow.
But, I stopped doing radio full time a long time ago.
There's got to be that itch still.
No,
I know you said it's not there, but there's got to be.
No, I know what radio is like now.
Yeah.
There is nothing I could do in radio that I haven't already done. There is no new terrain for me to cover. It's all been done. The opportunities don't exist for growth. I'm good. I'm happy being radio adjacent with the Q101 partnership with this podcast, but
right.
I don't ever need to go back to that industry.
I would just say with the knowledge that you have, the way you present, and just because you are tied to this city so much, it's got to be like that.
No, well,
still got to be there. I just feel that we've come this far. We've worked this hard.
Well, this is the result.
You've built up who you are.
I've got Joaquin coming up to my car. That
was pretty awesome. I won't disagree with that. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's mission accomplished for me. I'm good.
Gotcha. Well, consider me down to do this once a month with you if it scratches
once
inches.
a month. We need different topics. We need topics you feel more comfortable and conversant in.
I can converse with you about all of them. I just served you up once.
We can talk sports.
You said no sports or TV. I'm like, all right, greatest sandwich of all time.
That should have been a clue about the remote control when I said no TV.
I figured movie, because you're watching movies. But okay, that's fair.
Like the idea of a Hulu subscription, I can't.
I understand. I'm still paying for cable because I have a kid, but I don't want it anymore.
Yeah,
I don't want the cable anymore.
Someone needs to explain to me the benefit of Disney Plus.
Kid. Well, if you're doing the subscriptions, and if you are a sports person, there's the ESPN.
Oh, it's bundled.
And it's bundled with Hulu and everything else. So now I can watch The Bear because I have Disney Plus.
Do you like The Bear?
You know what? I've only seen the first episode. I know what they say. The first couple are slow, and then it gets into it. I just can't do. I can't do. You got to go 3 episodes until you can say you like it. That's not me.
I can't get past the first episode. I just realized, and I get what they're doing. It just wasn't for me. And I've watched the first episode 1.5 times for that exact reason. Like, I know I need to get over the hump. And the reason why I think I should try is because I had the same feeling when I first watched Sopranos. I did not like the first episode.
I'm right there with you. The episode where he's upset about the ducks in his pool. I was like, the baddest mobster is going to therapy for the ducks in his pool? I can't watch this.
Then it was nothing but payoff after that.
That's true. But I know when I watched Breaking Bad, I was hooked for the first episode.
Oh, yeah.
When I watched Dexter for the first time, I was hooked. When I watched, Lost for the first episode, like, all right, I'm in. But if it's going to take me 3 to 4 episodes to go, I think I'm into it, I can't commit to that.
Yeah, we don't live in a slow burn lifestyle anymore.
Slow burn lifestyle. That's a proper way to put it.
Don't bury the lead. Just get it all out there.
Just give me it. Just get me in.
Uh-huh.
Like music these days, right? Within 7 seconds, give me the hook. I don't want to hear bridges anymore. Just go right to the good stuff.
Do you listen to vinyl? Am I the only one?
I don't have vinyl, but when it's on and somebody's got it, I will prefer it.
Here's a bargument for you. Here's what you should have brought to the table. Not being critical, but here's what you should have brought to the table. Is it a record or a vinyl?
Ooh.
There's only one answer. It's a record.
Interesting.
I think it's a generational thing. You'll hear people of a certain generation say, oh, I bought a vinyl. Vinyl is the format. It's like saying I got an oxide for a cassette. It's not called vinyl store day. It's record store day.
That's true. So you would say, do they have this on record, not vinyl?
Yeah. Well, no, you could say on vinyl because it literally is on vinyl. It's pressed onto vinyl.
Right.
But it's not a vinyl.
It's
vinyl is a plural word.
It's a genre almost.
Yes.
Gotcha. You know, for a guy who sits in his car eating hot dogs and podcasting, a little angry, but I like it. You're
Angry?
touchy. You're touchy.
I have
You're a
thoughts.
touchy podcaster, and I love that.
not.
This is why I wanted to bargain with you. I like it. You are testy. I like it.
I'm not angry. I'm America's sweetheart.
The business doesn't love me. I'm out of it. I'm sitting in my car eating hot dogs for the rest of my life because it scratches the itch. I like it, man. I like it. I like hanging out with you.
I like eating hot dogs.
I will say this. I do miss when you and I used to work in the same building together and I had a studio for about, you would walk into my studio like Kramer, close the door, and just go, it's just us girls talking, and you would just vent for about 10 minutes and go, okay, I'm good, and just walk out. I would like, that made my day. I was like, that just made me feel so much better about life. I love when James would just come in and just saddle his way in and then just give it to me.
Who was that masked man?
And he just, like anybody else, all right, thank you. I just take a piece of candy and walk out. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah,
I had the candy jars.
You introduced me late in life to cherry sours.
Which are outstanding.
Well, yes, but your mileage may vary depending on what brand you get.
I've only really gotten the ones from Walgreens, to be honest.
Walgreens they're
the top notch.
Yeah. But
interesting. I didn't realize there were different flavors.
There are different companies that make them, and I've experimented, and some
Not
are
so
a little
good.
Some are a little too sugary.
Gotcha. I've only really, because we had the Walgreens, I was across the street.
Also, 7-Eleven cherry sours, not so bad.
Ooh, okay. You know what? Since I had that job, I haven't touched the cherry sour because it reminds me of that time. There's certain things I want. Ooh, that's an experience that I'm not living anymore.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, you should get back into radio. I can't eat a certain food because it reminds me of radio.
By the way, this is what a radio question I wanted to ask you. When you have left a job or a job let you go, how long does it take you, or can you listen to that radio station ever again?
Interesting. It's a really good question because when I got fired from Q101 in 2006, I didn't want to listen to that radio station, alternative music, anything for years.
I believe it.
I was so disgusted with the way it went down. I couldn't.
I'll go to another level. Like whenever I'm not there, and it's not a good thing on me to say, but it's like I root for them to lose. I root for them to see bad ratings, and it's not the way to be. But and when we lost the gig at Howard Stern, it was one of the best radio jobs I've ever had. It was one of the coolest opportunities. He actually wrote me a personal email saying, hey, you know what? This sucks, but you and Abe are awesome guys. You love radio. I love radio. Thanks for even, coming on and blah, blah, blah. But then when I got serious, I turned it off because it feels like a party that I'm not invited to anymore.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's true beyond radio. I remember being unemployed in general. Pardon me. And I remember walking the streets of downtown Chicago. I was meeting someone for lunch, and I would see people walking through the loop at lunchtime in groups from their office buildings, and I felt resentful.
Yes.
And it was
100%.
And I was aware that it was an immature, petty way to feel, but when you are out of work, it really does. After that first week, when everyone calls and checks in on you, you really feel adrift.
You start to almost go through the stages of when someone died. I tell my wife, like, whenever one of us has lost a gig or someone I know on radio that loses a gig, I'm like, you're going to go through anger, sadness, laughter. Anger is going to come a lot, and it just...
Well, there's denial in there.
Yes. All of it. You experience all of it because it's not what you were anymore, and you're just like, what am I doing? And I slept in today, or I should be... doing this or that, and it's a weird feeling. And it's like, after that first week when people check on you, you're like, that's it. The only time I'll hear and see from them again is on social media, and that's really about it.
Yeah, it is very lonely and I get it. People are busy, and it's not your well-being is not their job to maintain.
No, they have their own, and they're also sitting there. Worrying about their jobs. Right. There's tons of people that are like, did you hear if I'm getting laid off? I'm like, I have no idea. I just know that I did.
Right. But that clock is ticking once you get laid off, like
Yes.
the calls and emails are going to hit. They're just going to go off a cliff.
Yep. But it did have a PD, a guy who actually said to me, because I remember when I got laid off of the last one, and I reached out to a bunch of people. I was meeting with a bunch of PDs, and I remember the one guy saying, I know who you are. I know what you do. You're really talented. We're not hiring for anything, but when it's time for you to come back, you'll know when it's time to come back. Maybe try doing something different in the meantime, just for now. And I remember going like, just gave me a good, like, I didn't feel that feeling of survival mode anymore. It was actually a better way to put it when he said it like that. Like, you don't have to be so, desperate. Give me anything. Well, just take a time out. When it's time to come grab you, we know where you are. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go do something else then.
I think it's really important to have things. This is my creative pursuit. I think no matter what you do professionally, having some sort of outlet.
Yes.
That helps define you to yourself, at least outside of work, is so important.
Yes. And to be honest, when I have full-time radio gigs like I do now, I always have side gigs. I do have the side hustles. I do the voiceover stuff.
I saw the t-shirt. I know.
In case you're hiring. But the podcast stuff, I help clients. I have clients. I do stuff for like that. So, I'm constantly, in case one job goes away, man, I'm always scared. I need like 5 more that I can land. I need to land on a pillow when the rug comes out.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't want to go back to radio. You make it sound really glamorous.
The podcast where we kill all the dreams. But we made Gene and June's happen. This is probably the best hot dog I've ever had.
It's really good.
It's a really damn good hot dog.
You did the double. That was the smart move. We're going to wrap this up because we're recording this on Monday, July 15th. And as we're recording this, I think we are minutes, if not an hour or so away from some horrible, horrible, cataclysmic tornado-like storm.
Oh, we're going to see Dorothy.
I just saw lightning in the sky. It doesn't bode well. All the radar looked like, is green bad?
Oh, I've seen red. Red is not a good one.
It's not looking good. And I know we both have, this is kind of like halfway between the two of us, but we should probably haul ass to our respective homes.
I had fun.
And get in the basement.
And turn on the radio for coverage.
Right. Brent Miller always says, go somewhere.
Go somewhere low, no glass. Yeah. No glass.
All right. This has been a collab, a fire collab.
Good word.
Between Carcon Carne and Barguments. So this is going to be, your audience is going to hear this and think, I never want to hear men eating on a microphone ever again.
No, you know what? This is great. This is kind of like why you do these things. You introduce audiences to different people, and your audience is like, this guy doesn't know anything about music. I'm never listening to him again.
No, well, my podcast isn't exclusively music.
That's true.
I'll talk to restaurant owners, authors, whatever.
The food. I'm in it for the food. I'm in it for the hot dogs.
The hot dog is just a vessel to allow for conversation.
I'm in it. I'm in.
But yeah, that is the secret to Carcon Carne. If I'm at Gene and Jude's, it's because I wanted to have food for the podcast, didn't have a sponsor, and 2 people can walk out for less than $15.
Dude, you're right. And full.
Yeah, and
I'm
full.
Stuffed. I've only had half the hot dog. I'm stuffed.
Like if you had done a single dog, it probably would have been $2 cheaper. It would have been just over $10.
No, I need to engulf myself in what this is.
The other pro tip for Gene and Jude's as we're wrapping up: never get the large soda because it doesn't fit in any cup holder.
I noticed that.
They've got the giant styrofoam.
Yes, it's gonna be balanced on my lap.
Yeah, never do the large at Gene and Jude's. It's not worth it. Don't be a hero. You can't do it.
And the medium is the size of a large. That was big enough. That's big enough.
That's America, my friend.
Always big enough.
Oh. Dan Levy of Barguments, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for letting me do it with you. This is great.
A quick programming note for Carcon Carne, episode 1000 is coming up. Listen and watch for announcements of what I think will end up being 4 separate live events, 4 separate free live events that you can attend and be part of. So thank you, Dan.
Thank you, James.